Grantmakers is a programme where each year we have worked with a group of young Islington residents, and they come together as a group and work together over several months, and they have full decision-making power over a pot of money, a budget to spend on youth activities and youth support in the local area. So they come together, they draw up a list of their priorities, they think about what's important to them and other young people in Islington. They draw up a list of criteria based on what they feel makes a good project, what makes a good activity or good support for young people, and then they make all of the decisions about the applications that come in. One of the reasons that we decided to form the Young Grantmakers several years ago was because we realised that when we were making decisions about youth provision, so youth support and youth activities, it was really important to include the voices and the experiences of young people sort of around that decision-making table. So the young people who work with us as Young Grantmakers have lived experience of growing up in the area of Islington, either lived experience of going to projects and either enjoying them and not enjoying them, but also experience of, actually, I didn't feel that when I was younger I had access to activities or support that would have been really helpful or beneficial for me. So they both have a sense of kind of what worked, but also what was missing and where the gaps were, or where the gaps were around sort of overcoming some of the barriers for different people to access sort of services and projects. There are two objectives of the Young Grantmaker programme, and the first is about the professional and personal development of the Young Grantmakers themselves. So we wanted it to be a programme that, as well as we were recruiting and working with young people to make decisions about local youth support, local youth activities, we also wanted it to be beneficial for them and sort of add value to them and their lives. So we do a lot of work around training around teamwork and communication skills and interviewing skills, how to assess applications, how to read budgets. So there's lots of sort of skills building work that happens, lots of training, and so it's something that young grantmakers can add to their CVs, talk about in interviews, get references from us, and so we really wanted it to be something that added to their lives. The second objective is all about more informed grant making that also models giving young people decision-making power, because that's something that's really important to us in terms of thinking about like the funding sector more generally, but also sort of co-production and co-creation within youth activities themselves, thinking about how can young people have a voice and a say in the things that affect their lives. Firstly, we recruit a group of young people. This year we're working with a group of young people aged 16 to 24, and that's a process where we speak to every single person that applies. I have a phone conversation with them about the programme, about why they want to be involved. I tell them a little bit more about it so they can see if they want to be involved, and then we, from everyone that applies, we draw together a group of young grant makers. Then we run a programme of weekly sessions. This year it's going to be about 5 months in total, and it starts off around some general thinking and research around their priorities, what they think needs to improve in Islington for young people, what their concerns are, what the gaps are, but also what they kind of feel works in terms of youth groups they've been to before, activities they've gone to before or heard about, and so we kind of pull all of that knowledge together, and they begin to kind of drill down into forming their funding priorities and their criteria as well. And once that's been formed, we go out to the community and we open our call for project applications, and during that time the young grant makers have lots and lots of training around teamwork, communication skills, assessing applications, how to read budgets. We talk about project accounts and due diligence and lots of other stuff to do with like being a funder. So when the applications come in, the young grant makers feel skilled up and confident to assess them with the support of some of the Islington Giving staff. They assess the applications, they shortlist and then they interview a shortlist, and then from those interviews they make some final funding decisions. And those sort of sessions are big group sessions which are facilitated, so all projects are given consideration, and the young grant makers can speak about how and where different projects met their criteria, and why they want to fund them. So yeah, there's the shortlisting session and the final funding decision session at the end, and then we do some like reflection and then have a celebration as well. I think that it's an example of a programme which is genuinely giving decision-making power to young people. I think there's lots of ways that something like the Young Grant Makers could be done in quite a tokenistic way, but I think with the thought that was given to how to support and train the young people and skill them up so they feel confident and supported to make some really difficult decisions about funding different projects, feels really, really important. And I think that there's something about the Young Grant Makers programme which redresses some of the kind of imbalances and inequalities in our society about who is around decision-making sort of tables, whose voices are heard, whose voices are in the room, and whose voices are given weight. And I think that the Young Grant Makers programme does a really good job at centering and prioritising the voices and lived experience and knowledge and expertise of young people. I think it's getting to know the Young Grant Makers as individuals, but also as a group, and the different dynamics that are there. And I think there are just different moments where different Young Grant Makers over the years have sort of come out there and pushed through their comfort zone, or had some sort of incredible moments of, when I started this programme I thought that I wasn't decisive, or when I started this programme I didn't think I was very articulate, but now I feel like I can make decisions, or I can back myself when I'm trying to explain my point of view. And sort of hearing their reflections in that way of where the programme has just allowed things that were already there to kind of blossom a little bit is always really exciting. And so yeah, getting to know them as individuals and as a group is really fun. It's less of a learning and more of it ironed in something that was already a hunch, which is to trust young people and to create spaces for them to bring what they know, to expand their skills, to take risks and to trust themselves, really. I think that the programme really creates space for young people to have full say over a pot of money, but also feed their opinions and their voices and their ideas into the organisation as a whole. When we first started the Young Grant Makers, I think the pilot was 4 years ago, and there weren't that many other models of youth-led participatory grant making. And I now know that there are lots and lots of different models and lots of different funders are doing this work, and so there's definitely going to be lots of room to learn from others and improve the programme. I think there's maybe some considerations about the model and thinking about, actually, do we want to run a Young Grant Maker programme where we recruit mostly a new group of young people every single year and then train them up? In the Young Grant Makers we do have some returning young people that work with us over several years. I think there's maybe something about thinking about the longer term and how to make sure that the young people that we're working with and who are so invested in improving Islington for young people and having access to the decision-making power that they deserve, how to kind of make sure we are staying in touch and keeping them involved. And we do that in some ways. Maybe I think there could be some thinking about how to kind of push and extend and expand that.